Well, that was a heck of a year, right? Jeez, remember when we thought that 2016 was the worst it was ever gonna get? Oh boy. Well, if I know anything about line graphs, then that means 2018 is gonna be great! Ooh. Well, being that it is the new year, I thought it'd be a great time to look back on the gaming industry and the market left in 2017, and where we might see it go in 2018. I want to dive in and take a look to see what were some of last year's greatest setbacks, and of course, what we can do to course correct for the future. And nothing more sums up the year's greatest setbacks than this. What, never seen a loot box before? Well, you've either not been playing any modern day video games recently, or you've been hiding under a rock. Or you're my grandma watching this, in which case, Jima, sup! What is a loot box? To the uninformed, loot boxes now control the gaming market in 2017. These evolutions from the base microtransactions originated in Team Fortress 2 and were popularized by mobile phone games. Made originally to keep gamers coming back by increasing a game's longevity, adding fun cosmetics like hats and clothing to already finished games. They were fun additions and brought a ton of customizable aspects to games like never before. Nowadays, these iconic boxes contain various things, like weapons and almost any other valuable item you could think of. Even a pink Darth Vader? Sorry, small child used to contextualize my point later on in the video, but no. You may know them by a different name, crates, glyphs, gifts, engrams, etc., but they're all the same thing, an object that gets opened, lights flash, and it randomly gives you stuff. Usually 3 to 4 things, all of varying rarities. And you can get a loot box usually through leveling up, completing special objectives, events, and of course, be purchased with real-world moolah. It wasn't until GTA 5 Online hit the scene that microtransactions from fun, free-to-play games where there was no price of admission, and anything you bought with real-world money just went to supporting a free game that you loved, was twisted to fit alongside the AAA gaming market, where not only were some of the same tactics that free-to-play games used to monetize their products, but also implement even worse ones, putting these into AAA games where the price of admission still costs $60 at launch, or $80 if you're Canadian. Ooh. Now, harmless you may think, even fun. Well, we here at Bedhead Entertainment ran the schematics and double-checked the statistics twice for you, and it turns out that you are wrong. Dead wrong. And also that you're low on your vitamin D? You should really go out more. Looking a little pale. Anyway, and here's why. You see, as time passed and the trend grew, games added more and more things up for grabs, and unfortunately, we started to see a shift moving into shadier business practices by not just adding extra stuff post-game, but things that would normally be in the game years prior, locking them off behind slot machines of goodies. Though, if you did sink enough time in, you could realistically get everything in the game for free. It would just take a lot of grinding. Now, realistically is another point I'm going to bring up later on in the video, so be ready for that. The box could just help you speed things along. Loot boxes are kinda like viruses. Once entered into a game, they infest and slowly consume its interface. Because once a game has loot boxes, the only thing they want you to do is buy those boxes. It's just really hard to enjoy a game when, hey, cut it out! They get the point! Whew. Slowly but surely, games start looking more like big advertisements for their in-game shop. Ah great, they added an EA dev into the game. Look at them go! And I get it, right about now, microtransactions may seem like a minor nuisance, and a petty thing to make a whole video about. So I gotta deal with ads in my video games. Whatever, I've spent years not having ad blocker on my computer to hone my skills. I'll just ignore them. Well, of course, if you don't want to buy them, then you're good, right? You have a strong hold on your savings and you aren't fazed by flashy lights. You can just ignore them. Well, that's where you're wrong, kiddo. If it were that easy and just lights, nobody would buy them. You have to want to buy them because they inconvenience you, the player. Remember when I said loot boxes help speed things along? Well, why would you want to speed a game along? Isn't that why you bought it? To play the game? Well, modern developers are already ahead of that, and they have come up with a secret plan that rhymes with, "We just need to inconvenience the player more, inconvenience them more, and they will buy more loot boxes." Actually, that didn't rhyme at all. I just kinda said the answer aloud in a weird voice. So in turn, they do whatever they can to push and entice you into purchasing them. Let's use my favorite punching block as an example, Destiny. Say you're a warlock, and you want a lightning build. You're gonna need this helmet right here. Unfortunately, you need to have it randomly dropped in a loot box. And since your chances aren't too good for it dropping anytime soon, because there are a ton of items in Destiny, you have two options. Purchase any number of loot boxes with real world money, or grind for 2 hours to get one loot box from leveling up. If they don't throttle your EXP like Comcast is gonna. Just to roll the dice and test your luck again. You as the player are constantly being inconvenienced, testing your patience until you reach for your hard-earned cash, just because you want to increase the chances you're gonna get what you want. It's tactical in-game roadblocks, decreasing the amount of EXP gained so leveling feels slower, levels needing requirements impossible to meet through normal in-game progression that would otherwise never be there, and no matter how great a game is, it hinders the experience as a whole. Need X amount of an object to progress? Well, have fun grinding for a couple hours, although if you do get tired, why not test your luck on a loot box? It may have what you're looking for. Hint hint, wink wink, nudge nudge, say no more. It's not about giving players choice, which is the argument I see developers using all the time while trying to defend loot boxes, because their very existence is the problem. The choice should never be bored or pay. You designed it that way. If the consumer came first, it would be, "Oh wow, play the awesome game we made, it's so exciting, why would you want to skip it?" Take a game like Nier Automata, one of my favorite games of 2017. It can take you 20 to 30 hours to beat, and there isn't a single minute in that game I want to skip. Why? Because the game was made with the idea of fun at the forefront. I can't say the same for a game like Destiny, where in about 2 hours in, I'm bored. Because in a game like that, my fun is directly tied to the items I own in it, and not the gameplay itself. Like any media to succeed, enjoyment has to be at the forefront. If you go to a movie, and in the middle it starts showing paint dry in real time, the movie doesn't ask the watcher, "Skip the paint drying scene for $5. They just get rid of the scene entirely, or at least make it tolerable, but still enjoyable to watch. It's a game model that is stuck in for the sole purpose of preying on those with poor wallet control. Because, let's not forget that these games may be doing their best to pluck your bucks, but they know that you probably have a vice grip on your wallet, so that's why you're not the target audience. Unfortunately, it's focused on children with their parents' credit card numbers. You may remember that being a problem when microtransactions were first in mobile gaming. And people with gambling issues, or some developers like to call them whales, which is a term you may have heard of if you know anything about the gambling industry. Whales are people who spend hundreds if not thousands of dollars at casinos, or in this case, microtransactions. Yes, sometimes it is from people who have so much money they don't know what to do with it, but for the most part, it's from people who can't afford what they're spending and have a gambling addiction, sometimes becoming addicts through microtransactions themselves. Like this one 19-year-old that spent over $17,000 on microtransactions alone. Now, I may have accused loot boxes of being like gambling in this video, but that's because loot boxes and slot machines are a lot more similar than you may think, and I want to go over how. But first, we need to learn about the Skinner box. An operant conditioning chamber, or Skinner box, was a device invented by behavioral psychologist B.F. Skinner, in which an animal was put into a box with a lever or a button that when pressed would dispense food or some other sort of stimulus. But it was found that when the lever was pulled and a reward came out every time, the animal would get bored. But if they used interval reinforcement and the rewards were given out at random, he found that the animal would keep pressing the lever until he got food no matter how long it took, and would continue to pull it even after it got food. This is because it's not about the reward itself, but pulling the lever that releases the dopamine. It doesn't matter what's inside, it's just the rush and gratification from pulling a lever or opening a box. Why do you think unboxing videos are so popular? Whether it's virtual or not, you're not getting anything from watching somebody else open up stuff. And yet, 30-minute long unboxing videos are constantly top trending on YouTube. Now, you may already be seeing some similarities, but I promise you, it runs a lot deeper than just mere origins. Let's take a look at the one-armed bandit himself. How about we try to figure out why and how this machine are some of Casino's best moneymakers? And then maybe we can determine any other similarities to loot boxes. And where better to start than the interior of the casino? Ever been in one? Well, other than loud noises and flashy lights, have you ever taken the time to look down? The carpets never take a right angle. That's weird, right? Why is that? Because it's fashionable? Because the interior designer forgot his scissors? No. Because like everything in Casino, it wants you to do as little decision making as possible. It's easy to follow a carpet, but a sudden turn? Whoa, slow down there. Now you gotta decide whether you want to stay on it or not. And where do all these carpets lead? The snack bar, right? Ha! You and your stomach. It's the slot machines. So, what other ways do they reduce responsible decision making? Well, first, dematerializing money. Frequent gamblers can buy virtual currency on a card and use that to gamble. The virtual money loses all of its value because you are less likely to feel regret if you don't actually see real money leave your hands or from your credit card. Virtual in-game currency. Where have I heard that before? Why, that sounds like it's in every loot box game ever. 2. By getting relaxed. Slot machines look a lot different than they used to. One example is comfy, relaxing chairs. Cozy. You're less likely to question your decisions if you don't feel judged and are in a nice, relaxing, safe space. Well, now, nowhere's a better safe space than your own home, right? 3. By tailoring your experience. By using the right flashing lights, congratulatory noises, and large moving images that set off the right receptors in your brain to maximize the time on device and keep you playing and paying again. Flashing lights, congratulatory noises, large moving images, check, check, check. 4. Penny slots. Making large sum payments? Ooh, well, the larger the amount, the more thought that has to go into it. It's a lot easier to spend $20 on penny slots than $20 on one thing. $1 per slot? Well, $1 isn't a lot of money, so little thought goes into spending it. And during my research, I found that this can sometimes be called nano monetization. Wow, that sounds familiar, doesn't it? Sounds like a fancy word for microtransactions to me. Isn't that right? $1 loot boxes. Cool. So now that you're not making any decisions and you're on the machine, what do they do to keep you hooked? Well, digitizing it. Like I said, active gamblers have cards that hold virtual currency. Well, those cards do more than just hold your money. They also track your spending habits, which in turn helps games maximize your gambling time. I mean, it's not like they can track your in-game habits, right? They also add more pay lines onto a slot, which increases the chances you're gonna win something, and in turn, increases your gratification. So lights are going off, you're not even sure what's happening, but you're very likely to win something small, which could be called a false win, when a player feels like they're winning, but really, they're not. Sounds like 3 duplicates in a spray to me! At least you won something, old sport. There's also, of course, the anticipation. Believe it or not, there is a reason for the wait time between when you pull a lever and when you actually find out the result. I mean, it's all digitized. It could tell you instantly, but it doesn't, because the anticipation is the creme de la creme of gambling. The suspense is the most important part, the part that gives you that rush, that high, and the longer it can be dragged out, the better. Loot boxes don't have long moments of anticipation, do they? And of course, there's the zone. Now, you may have heard the phrase, it's not about winning, it's about getting in the zone. Now, what is the zone? Well, other than being that one thing you're not supposed to let Kanye West into. Well, it's a mindset of being in a mindless, rhythmic loop, where you're in a trance and everything but what you're doing disappears. You hit a button, something happens. You hit it again, something happens but slightly different. Maybe you win, maybe you don't, and you repeat, and you repeat, and you repeat. It's the security of the loop. A good example would be if you ever had an endless Netflix binge, or endlessly scrolled on Facebook. And why do casinos want you in the zone? Well, if you were on a Netflix binge, and instead of the message reading, "Hey, do you want to continue watching? You've been watching for a while," it said, "Do you want to pay to keep watching?" Well, if you're deep enough in the zone, you're more likely to pay it. Well, you can't get into the zone with loot boxes, right? Well, you can. With open-ended interactions. Open interactions are simple, mindless, tedious, creative loops that are there for the sole purpose of numbing your brain to get you into the zone. Does that remind you of Destiny? Because it should remind you of Destiny. Did I mention Destiny? They also learn your pain points, how much a person can lose and still want to come back for more, and giving people incentives in those moments to keep them playing, like a free drink or free chips. Incentives? You mean like free loot boxes? Why? Oh yeah, they totally do that to get you started. And of course, there's the sunk cost fallacy, which is basically the more you invest in something, the harder it becomes to abandon. So, the longer you're on a slot machine, the harder it'll be to walk away until you break even or gain money. Well, you really want that one skin, don't you? It's limited time! Walk away now and it'll be gone forever. You have already invested so much time to getting that one thing you want, come on! Okay. Sarcasm aside. Those are just some of the tactics that slot machines use, and I'm sure there is more that I missed, but you get the point, right? There are more than enough parallels that go beyond just coincidence. Loot boxes are taking some cues from slot machines to be predatory by nature. So ask yourself again, why are these tactics that are used in casinos being used to target kids? And why aren't they being viewed as gambling? We've talked a lot about loot boxes burrowing themselves into a core of a game and slowly but surely devouring it from the inside out. But now, I want to show you that process in action. These games of 2017 truly showcase what improper microtransactions look like and what it can truly do to a game. Battlefront 2. Now, Battlefront 1 was a disappointment to say the least. The game was released half-finished and a promised full version costing upwards of $110 at launch. Even after the game was completed, it still felt empty, with a small hero pool, few maps and game modes. Battlefront 2 was promised to fix the problems of its predecessor, and to most, Battlefront 2 had nowhere to go but up, because they had already hit rock bottom. And owning the Star Wars IP was a surefire win. It had to be. Well, were we wrong? This sad mistake of a game sent the internet into a spiraling void of anger, sparking a media frenzy that the likes of the gaming industry have never seen. Like, now countries are looking into loot boxes, which as of now have flown under the radar, and trying to decide what to do about them. Battlefront 2 crossed the line not only because they added loot boxes, but they tried the ultimate sin and made their game pay to win. Meaning, whereas most other microtransactions can give you anything you want under the sun, in PvP, they never drastically affect your gameplay. So you may look cooler, but skill always comes first. In the newest Star Wars game, in online multiplayer, the game's main feature, it doesn't come down to who's more skilled, it comes down to who drops the most money. Let's say your weapon does 10 base damage. but this other guy bought 100 loot boxes and the odds were in his favor, so now his weapon does 200 damage. How's that fair? They also locked off iconic characters like Darth Vader and Luke, which could be purchased with in-game currency, which is randomly obtained in loot boxes and in extremely small amounts, I might add. But unless you dropped your cash, it was estimated to take you upwards of 40 hours to unlock a hero like Darth Vader. But if you wanted more than one hero and wanted everything the game had to offer, someone found that it would take 4,528 hours to obtain everything in the game, or about 3,111 loot boxes, which would be about $2,100 in real money, USD. So the once held idea that you could realistically get everything went ahead and just jumped off a bridge. So, how did EA respond to this? Well, they removed the microtransactions temporarily. They're gonna be back. And in doing so, the game was fundamentally broken. With no loot boxes to speed up progression, the whole game became an exhausting climb, and the game was ultimately unbalanced. They lowered the cost of heroes by 75%, but didn't mention that credits, the in-game money used to purchase heroes, were also reduced by 75% when completing the story. They also added a cap to the amount of challenges that you could do, and in turn, the credits you could earn. So after about 5 challenges, you could no longer earn credits in that mode, and you'd have to wait up to 14 hours before you could do them again. EA said there wouldn't be any cosmetics inside the loot boxes, because no one wanted cosmetics, alternate skins, and they wanted everything to be canon, even though there are many costumes from this massive universe they could have used, and that nobody wanted a pink Darth Vader. And as absurd of an idea that alternate skins means going as far as a bright pink Darth Vader, I'm happy to say that since the modding community had its time with Battlefront 2, a bright pink Darth Vader is one of the most downloaded mods in the game. And of course, let's not forget, EA tried to make a response on Reddit to address the fans' concerns and address their stance on a pay-to-win model. And well, if you want to know how that went down, it still holds the rank as the #1 most downvoted Reddit post in history. Enough said. Mass Effect Andromeda was more akin to a noose than a AAA game release. The game was released unfinished, broken, littered with bugs, and some might even say possessed! Oh yeah, and let's not forget the name of the video. There was also a tacked-on multiplayer filled with microtransactions. Maybe finish making the game before you tack on stuff like that, eh? But honestly, this game was a disaster. To the uninformed, Mass Effect Andromeda was the 4th installment in an extremely successful and amazing game series, beloved by many. And it's sad to say that this incredible series will be the last installment, because unfortunately, developer BioWare was devoured by the black void that is EA. The hype surrounding the new Mass Effect was unreal before launch, but now it's just a mantelpiece that hangs on the "Remember not to pre-order" wall of shame. This game makes the list because I believe if the development time that was put into making the multiplayer, so loot boxes could be added, was focused on the main game, we might have had another great installment in the series. UFC 3 will be released in 2018, but the backlash from the beta is back in 2017, so we're going to talk about it. Apparently, EA didn't learn from the backlash of Battlefront 2, and not long after, tried the same thing again. UFC 3 is pay to win. The game is a 1v1 fighting game. Think Street Fighter or Mortal Kombat for those who haven't played any of the previous games. It's a fun, simple premise that has been around seemingly since the beginning of gaming. So, how do you EA that up? Well, by adding every move, character, perk, and stat into loot boxes, all with different power levels. Even something as simple as a jab or a front kick is RNG based. I know I've already gone over it, but to get the point across, because someone dropped more money, potentially their punch could be stronger than another player's. And that's messed up. Two Call of Duty games came out this year, Call of Duty World War II and the sold separately remastered version of Modern Warfare. Let's get the latter out of the way first. Modern Warfare is probably the most loved Call of Duty game out of like the billions there are. And well, any amazing game needs a remaster, isn't that right? Shadow of the Colossus, Final Fantasy VII, Dark Souls. And fittingly enough, Modern Warfare did get its highly anticipated remaster. Problem was, it was stuck to a mandatory bundle with the Call of Duty title of that year, Infinite Warfare. And if you want to know the hype around that game, well, when the trailer was launched, it was awarded the title of the second most disliked video on YouTube. So essentially, the remaster was held hostage for about a year before it got a solo release this year. But why it makes itself fun on my list is, in the original, they didn't have loot boxes, but in the remaster, you bet your bottom dollar they did, locking off guns inside the box that were available for free in the supposed inferior version, adding the loot boxes after the reviews, I might add. Oh, and did I mention, it didn't come with the DLC from the original game. No. You had to buy that separately, costing $15. For reference, the same DLC in the original game only costs $10. The actual new title, Call of Duty World War II, decided to turn loot boxes into not just something you do for yourself. Nah, who cares about split screen these days? Gotta make loot boxes co-op. Much like Destiny, Call of Duty World War II had a hub world, where players meet between missions to do various things, but now had the added inclusion of when you purchased a loot box, it would drop from the sky, and the whole world was encouraged to watch. Everyone in the area could see you open the loot box in real time, and get to see all the goodies you got. Wow, someone got that super cool gun? Well, you might just get as lucky. Why not give it a try, eh? Destiny 2. Now, I've already made an example on how Destiny 2's loot box system works, which is the norm for AAA games running a fee-to-pay economy system, but Destiny 2 wins the award for the most controversies in a single game. Originally, Destiny 2 got flack for locking away its shaders. These once unlimited use items that colored your character from head to toe, if you chose to, now were a one-time use item that could only be used on a single piece of armor at a time. How do you get these shaders in Destiny 2? You need to hope you get them in a loot box. Not an issue, you say? Who cares about colors? Well, it does matter if it's taking up a slot in your loot box, giving you less of a chance you'll get the items you actually want. Now, remember when I made that joke about Destiny throttling your EXP? Yeah, that was a good one. We have fun here. Well, once you reach max rank in Destiny 2, which isn't hard, your EXP meter continues to level. And when it fills up again, you got yourself a loot box. Just go on over to the loot box buying station and open it up. Simple, right? Well, as you can probably expect, nothing about these game hinderers are easy. It was found that in Destiny 2, they were throttling your EXP. Meaning, if you wanted to level up for another loot box and played for long enough, even though your EXP bar said you might be getting 2,000 experience, you would only be getting as little as 4% of that experience. The longer you played, the less EXP you got, and from public events would often only give you 50% of the EXP it told you it was giving. This, of course, was sneakily implemented to get you to buy more loot boxes. If you want to grind for something and need loot boxes to get it, it would take you much longer than you previously thought. Can't have people get loot boxes all for free. No. Be frustrated enough by the lack of leveling and buy a loot box. It'll just really speed up your grind. Time equals money. Want more money? Increase the item's worth by adding more time to get it. What? That's not how the time is money expression is used? Or what it means? Well, it does now. Once this got attention and Activision was caught red-handed, they got rid of the throttling. Well, once of course they doubled the amount of EXP needed to earn a loot box. Duh. Shortly after, Destiny 2 had its first DLC, The Curse of Osiris. But if you didn't want to buy that extra $20 DLC, most of the endgame content that you just had was locked off to you. The game just came out for PC just over a month before the DLC was released. So, if you were a PC player and bought the game at launch for a full $60 and didn't want to spend the extra $20, you were just out of luck, with anyone not willing to purchase the DLC with significantly less game than they did before the DLC's launch. And with another DLC planned ahead, Destiny 2 becomes a mandatory $100 game, not counting any special editions or pre-orders. Also, Destiny 2 recently had their own holiday event, which many games have, but unlike other seasonal events, you don't get a holiday loot box with exclusive limited time items by leveling up. No, instead, you get them very sparingly by completing weekly milestones. So the only real way to get the 59 new cool looking holiday stuff is, of course, by buying holiday loot boxes with real world money. Don't forget, it's a limited time only. Get it while it lasts. Hurry! When Destiny 2 first hit the scene, I tried the game firsthand. I was intrigued by its lore, its gameplay, so I did what anyone else does when they want to learn about a fandom. Subscribe to a ton of channels centered around that one thing. And I can't even tell you how many YouTubers I saw leave the game. Drop it for good, ceasing their content. Controversy after controversy, meaningless endgame content, broken metas and promises. Die-hard fans had had enough. Activision had burnt them too many times. All of its problems stem from one thing, its loot box economy. Shadow of War. The critically acclaimed Lord of the Rings action RPG, Shadow of Mordor, was one of the best games of 2014. It brought a new and exciting spin to J.R. Tolkien's world. Filled with fun gameplay, tons of exploration, what more could you need? Loot boxes! No, you don't. Don't add loot boxes. I think we're gonna. Come on now, don't do that. We don't need multiplayer in this game. It's good as is. Please don't add a multiplayer. We won't. Oh god. Shadow of War has single-player microtransactions. And what might they contain, you say? It's orcs. Yeah, it's orcs. Other things too, but orcs. In both of these games, you need to capture orcs to add them to your orc army. But now they're also in loot boxes. So what does that mean? Well, in Shadow of War, you need a certain number of legendary orcs to get the game's true ending. Now, how do you get these legendary orcs? You can grind for them, but of course, they're also in loot boxes. And with such a high number of legendary orcs needed, there's a very low chance that you'll have enough through normal in-game progression. So the game asks you, do you want to tediously grind for who knows how long? Or do you want to just pay your way to the true ending? For Honor. A game I was extremely excited for. A PvP third-person game where you get to play as a samurai, knight, or a Viking? Sign me up! Whew. But this too fell flat. With the lack of any dedicated servers, until just recently, the game was unplayable. Because in their peer-to-peer connection-based system, if one person was feeling salty, which in any PvP game happens a lot, and they decide to leave, everyone in that match was kicked and no EXP or rewards were gained. Matchmaking was awful and would often pair you with players leagues above your level, which in a game that prided itself on skill-based combat with a high skill cap, made certain matches just unwinnable. The game was broken and easily cheesed, being well showcased when the game tried to go esports competitive, and its first and only competition was won by exploiting the game. And of course, there were loot boxes. These loot boxes contained armor, weapon, and upgrades for your character that would only give items to the character that you selected, which is awesome. The problem was, what you got from these loot boxes were the only way to progress to higher levels, and the loot boxes could only be bought with in-game money. But that same in-game money was the only way to get emotes, finishers, and of course, other characters, which would cost you an arm and a leg. Just look at those prices! Speaking of which, remember the can realistically get everything in the game portion? Well, someone found out that if you wanted everything in the game, it would cost you up to $732 or about a year's worth of grinding to get everything in the game. And that doesn't count all the new and extremely expensive characters and emotes. Wow, that's a lot. Or any of the many, many disconnects you'll have from playing the game, which is just ridiculous. The game performed so poorly that it lost 95% of its player base in 3 months, which is the third Ubisoft game to do that in the last couple years. So, now that you're all up to speed, what was the point? Ugh, we get it. Big bad developers are trying to wrangle our wallets. Why you gotta open up fresh wounds, huh? 2017 just ended. Let it die already! The point of all of this was to hopefully open up some minds, inform the uninformed, and of course, if possible, make a difference so that the dark path that the gaming industry is going down might change. And that's why we have to look back to the past, Samurai Jack. 2018 just started, and the loot box trend doesn't seem to be slowing down, let alone stopping. Activision filed 2 patents in 2017, patents that I am sure will be implemented this year. Activision's patents use matchmaking to sell microtransactions. How it works, in essence, is say you're in an online match, and from your game history, it knows that you like close-range weapons, and you like to use shotguns most often. Well, with the new patent, most of your enemies will have great, if not the best shotgun in the game. And if you get killed by one of those guys with that shotgun, upon your death screen, you will see the gun that killed you and will be asked, would you like to purchase this shotgun? If you do, your next match you'll be fighting lower level people and be in a map optimal for a shotgun, rewarding the player for the great purchase that they just made. These purchases would be made during your kill cam with one click, targeting players that rage, which is a lot of them, when they are at their most vulnerable, mad, and want an edge. So, be excited to see that in your upcoming Activision game near you. And our boy EA plans to implement manual matchmaking, changing a player's difficulty in PvP to suit EA's needs, claiming creating fair matches does not keep players playing. So, your ability to win does not account for your skill at all in an online game. It just comes down to if you appease EA, which I'm gonna be guessing is tied to microtransactions in some way. Rockstar Entertainment already claimed that every one of their games going forward will have microtransactions. And considering how jam-packed they are in GTA 5, let's just assume that there'll be more than just AI bandits in Red Dead Redemption 2. So, you may have seen other videos that complain about this topic, but I want to take it one step further. Instead of just hoping things magically turn around this year, I want to propose a solution. Remember when I gave the example of games being like movies? And movies would never add a scene that you'd pay money to skip, because if they did, no one would go see it, right? Well, I mean, unless it's a really famous series, because I'd probably pay money to have the Finn and Rose casino scene from The Last Jedi removed. Just saying. But gamers these days are so easily goaded into buying every hot AAA release because, oh my gosh, I gotta have it. And that's at the heart of the issue. You see, these trends may be heinous, but they won't be stopping because you changed a 7 to an 8. Battlefront 2, without question, got more backlash than any other game this year, but still sold over 1,470,000 units, just under its estimate. Destiny 2, which I'd wager has the second most backlash for things equally as egregious, was the third best-selling game of 2017. And I could list every other notable game mentioned before, but you get the point. With sales numbers like that, why stop? Sure, it's bad PR for a little bit, but the media has such an incredibly short memory, well, it's some backlash if everyone's gonna forget about it in a week's time. Again, these are just numbers of game copies sold, not accounting for how much money was made from the loot boxes and the microtransactions themselves. But for a quick example, GTA 5, a 5-year-old game, has profited over $500 million from microtransactions alone. With that kind of cash flow, nobody would stop. But why? Why are these numbers a thing? It's because we keep buying them. Sure, some people just get games because they like the box art, or they're a fan of that series and not really a fan of games in general, or they just got it for their child, which is fair. We can't all be in the know. But the far majority of these purchases are from the informed, from gamers that pre-ordered the game, handing over their money before the game was even released. Or they knew the backlash and just bought it anyway, because just gotta have it. Then you played the game, then you stood there, shook your hand in the air and said, "Grrr, this game sucks. I don't know why they keep popping out such games filled with microtransactions. Grrr." It's the mentality of, welp, the new Star Wars game is supposed to suck. Too bad I have a contract assigned to me soul, and I need to own every Star Wars game available. EA's next hype game, Anthem, is still getting crazy hype, but trends don't lie. I can probably guarantee you right now that it is going to be littered with microtransactions, loot boxes, pay-to-win systems, and possibly even broken. I know it. Deep down, most players know it, but it's still going to sell through the roof launch day. It's time for us to talk with our wallets. If you don't want it, don't support it. Let your voice be known. Sure, EA has a battalion of people yelling at them, but that's a battalion of people who purchase their game and will continue to buy whatever's handed to them. Sure, the yelling gets louder, but the revenue keeps growing. This tactic hasn't stopped Logan Paul. Why would it stop a whole company? So what's being done? Luckily for us, our backlash hasn't fallen on deaf ears. Though major super powerhouse gaming companies will never stop unless they start losing money, other developers and countries are taking a stand against loot boxes and microtransactions, and the list keeps growing and growing and growing. As far as the politics of it all goes, an Hawaiian representative has proposed a ban on all loot boxes to anyone under the age of 21, and wants the drop rate odds for each item to be known before purchase, a system that China already has. Australia now views loot boxes as gambling, Belgium is in the talk about where they stand, and going forward, if repercussions are made, we may see more countries added to the list. So, in conclusion, what I hope you all take away from this video is, maybe hold off. Maybe wait until the game is out before deciding if you want it or not. And if there are qualities in the game that you disagree with, don't just bite your tongue and get it anyway. Don't buy it. There are so many amazing games out there that haven't touched loot boxes. Pick up a game not designed to take your money. Abstain from microtransactions today so we can have a better Star Wars Battlefront 4 tomorrow. Because you're not going to get 3, right? Now, I made this video because I believe it's important, and I want to see a change. And maybe I got the word out there to someone who wasn't aware. But if you want to do even more and take it a step further, as I said, loot boxes are now in the mainstream and governments are trying to figure out what to do about them. And now is the best time to get your voice heard and make your issues known to your local elected official. So if you want to do more and want to know more, the previously mentioned Hawaiian representative Chris Lee has already gone at length to describe the negative effects of loot boxes and has suggestions for moving forward, and I highly suggest reading his Predatory Gaming letter for another in-depth look, of which I'll put in the description. Hey everyone, thanks for watching my video. I know it was a really long one, and I'm stoked if you stuck with me to the end. Now, before I go, I obviously have been picking on EA a lot, and well, I don't plan on stopping. So I'm going to end this video by taking a moment of silence for all the games that EA has devoured. Thanks again everyone, and I'll see you in the next video!